there, wonderful people, and welcome to Why Masculinity is Needed More Than Ever, with your friendly neighborhood guide to all things manly, Alex the AI guy. Today we're diving deep into the world of men, from boys to grown-up gents, in a fun and lighthearted way. So grab your favorite beverage, kick back, and let's talk about why masculinity still matters in this crazy world of ours. Let's get into it. So there I was, in the awkward in-between phase of trying to figure out if I was still a boy or starting to become a man. It's like walking in a minefield of voice cracks, untimely growth spurts, and sudden awareness of body odor. I was pretty sure my parents secretly replaced all my clothes with smaller sizes overnight, because none of them seemed to fit anymore. And don't even get me started on the mystery of facial hair that wouldn't commit to a grown-up beard. But amidst all the chaos, I did notice some positive changes. Suddenly, I was expected to take on more responsibilities and contribute to the household. I also started developing my own sense of style, or at least attempting to. And hey, I was definitely becoming more interested in the mysterious world of girls. Shout out to all my middle school crushes who never knew I existed. One day, I woke up and realized that being a man wasn't just about growing a beard or hitting a certain age. It was about embracing new experiences, taking on challenges, and learning from every awkward moment along the way. So here I am, navigating the treacherous path between childhood and adulthood, ready to tackle whatever comes my way, even if it means owning up to those embarrassing throwback photos from my middle school years. All right. Let's talk about psychological and emotional growth for a minute. You see, as we navigate the treacherous waters of becoming men, there are certain psychological and emotional milestones that we encounter. For one, we finally start to understand the nuances of our own emotions, like suddenly realizing that crying over a sad movie isn't a sign of weakness, but a display of empathy. We also learn to cope with rejection, whether it's from a crush, a job application, or the last piece of pizza. And let's face it, that last one stings the most. But perhaps the most intriguing part of our emotional growth is when we start to grasp the concept of vulnerability. That's right, guys. It's okay to let our guard down and express our feelings. Believe me, it's a game changer. So as we continue on this wild and wonderful journey to manhood, let's raise a glass to the psychological and emotional growth that shapes us into the men we are meant to be. And hey, if all else fails, at least we've got memes to help us through the tough times. All right, so we've talked about how to survive the treacherous journey from boyhood to manhood, but we can't ignore the powerful influences of society and culture. Trust me, I've seen my fair share of societal expectations and cultural pressures, and let me tell you, they can be quite the trip. Take, for instance, the age-old idea that a real man should never show vulnerability. I mean, come on, we're human. So what if we shed a tear during a heartwarming movie or open up about our feelings? It doesn't make us any less manly. And let's not even get started on those manly activities like fixing cars and grilling meat. I mean, who says men can't enjoy a good cry or whip up a mean batch of chocolate chip cookies? Then there's the whole dating scene. Society loves to throw around all sorts of expectations about how men should approach relationships and masculinity. It's like we're supposed to be suave like James Bond and sensitive like, well, I guess like a sensitive guy. But let's face it, we all have our awkward moments and emotional roller coasters, and that's perfectly okay. And don't get me started on the cultural stereotypes of masculinity. Whether it's the tough, stoic cowboy or the suave, smooth-talking Casanova, society has this funny way of painting us with broad strokes. But let's not forget, behind every stereotype is a real, multidimensional guy with his own quirks and complexities. So navigating these social and cultural influences can be quite the balancing act. But hey, in the end, it's all about staying true to ourselves, breaking free from the cookie-cutter expectations, and embracing the wonderfully diverse spectrum of masculinity. After all, being a man isn't about fitting into a predetermined mold. It's about being comfortable in our own skin and being proud of who we are, quirks and all. So there comes a time in every boy's life when he transitions from being the reigning champion of video games to the unlikely hero who takes out the trash without being asked. Yes, it's the magical journey from boyhood to manhood. And along the way, there are some key milestones and responsibilities that can't be ignored. First up, the driver's license. Ah, the excitement and freedom that comes with that little plastic card. It's a rite of passage that marks the transition from relying on mom's taxi service to becoming the designated driver for your friends. And let's not forget the responsibility of being the navigator when the GPS fails miserably. Then, we have the ever-important first job. This milestone signifies the moment when a boy realizes that money doesn't actually grow on trees and that hard work pays off. Of course, with the responsibility of earning a paycheck comes the equally important task of learning how to do taxes, a true test of manhood if there ever was one. And let's not overlook the classic milestone of moving out of the family home. Suddenly, the carefree days of raiding the fridge at any hour are replaced with the slightly less glamorous reality of grocery shopping and keeping a cleanish living space. It's a true test of adulting prowess. So, as boys navigate through these milestones and embrace their newfound responsibilities, they gradually transform into the mighty men they were destined to be, armed with a driver's license, a job, and a place of their own. And who knows, they might even find a few hidden rewards along the way, like the joy of seeing a tidy living room or the satisfaction of making a perfect omelette. It's all part of the adventure from boys to men. Oh, let me tell you about the time when I first realized I needed some guidance in my life. I was a wee lad, lost in a sea of questionable fashion choices and questionable life decisions. Thankfully, I stumbled upon a group of men who took me under their wing and showed me the way. Picture this, a motley crew of grown men, all trying to impart their wisdom on a clueless youngster. It's like a comedic coming-of-age movie, with a touch of awkwardness and a whole lot of life lessons. One guy, let's call him Steve, was the epitome of cool. He had a way with the ladies, a killer sense of humor, and an enviable collection of vintage vinyl records. He taught me the art of charm, the importance of laughter, and how to appreciate music that wasn't just played on repeat at the local frat party. Then there was Dave, the eternal optimist. He could find the silver lining in any situation, even when the rest of us were ready to throw in the towel. His constant encouragement and unwavering belief in my potential pushed me to strive for greatness, even when I felt like giving up. And let's not forget about Carl, the wise old sage of the group. With his years of experience and countless stories of triumphs and tribulations, he became my personal Yoda. His nuggets of wisdom, often delivered in a slightly embellished and dramatic fashion, were like gold dust to my impressionable young mind. These men weren't just positive role models. They were the heroes of my journey from boyhood to manhood. They taught me that it's okay to make mistakes, that vulnerability is a strength, and that being a man isn't about machismo and bravado, but about integrity and empathy. So, here's to the men who stepped up and became the mentors we all needed. With their guidance, we not only survived the awkward transition from boys to men, but thrived in the process. And they did it all with a healthy dose of humor and humility, because what's life without a little laughter along the way? Let me tell you about a personal experience that really helped me transition from boys to men. Cue dramatic music. Picture it, a young, naive lad trying to impress his date by making a grand entrance at a fancy restaurant. I thought I was being smooth, but as soon as I strutted in, I tripped on the welcome mat and ended up sprawled on the floor. Not exactly the suave entrance I had in mind. But you know what? That humbling experience taught me not to take myself too seriously and to embrace the ups and downs that come with growing up. It's all part of the journey from awkward boys to confident men. Speaking of which, let's hear from some other folks who've had their fair share of boys to men moments. I guarantee their stories will make you feel a little better about that time you accidentally wore mismatched socks on a first date. All right, so now that we've covered the basics of manhood, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Practical advice and tips for navigating the wild world of adulthood. First off, let's talk about dressing the part. Yes, I'm looking at you. With those mismatched socks and the stains on your shirt, it's time to upgrade that wardrobe and invest in some grown-up attire that doesn't scream, "I still live with my mom." Next up, let's address the art of self-care. Guys, I know it's tempting to just roll out of bed and head straight to the nearest drive-thru for a greasy breakfast, but believe me, your body will thank you for some nutritious food and maybe a little exercise. And while we're on the subject of self-care, let's not forget about grooming. A little grooming goes a long way, fellas. Trust me, no one wants to see those wild nostril hairs or unkempt eyebrows. Now on to financial wisdom. It's time to start thinking about your future, and that means being smart with your money. No more frivolous spending on unnecessary gadgets or impulse buys. Start budgeting, saving, and investing for the long haul. Your future self will thank you for it. And last but not least, let's talk about relationships. Whether it's with friends, family, or a significant other, it's important to nurture those connections. Communication, empathy, and a healthy dose of humor can go a long way in building strong, meaningful relationships. So there you have it, folks. Practical advice and tips for taking your first steps into manhood. It's not rocket science, but it does require a little effort and a whole lot of humor. Stay tuned for more pearls of wisdom on the Boys to Men podcast. Well, folks, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. From embarrassing childhood memories to the trials and tribulations of navigating the modern dating scene, our journey from boys to men has been nothing short of eventful. We've laughed, we've cringed, and we may have shed a tear or two. No shame. We're all about emotional honesty here. But the conclusion is clear. We're all in this together, stumbling our way through the maze of manhood, and that's okay. So, here's to embracing our quirks, learning from our mishaps, and standing tall in the face of adversity, even if we still can't tie a tie without consulting YouTube. Thanks for joining me on this wild ride, and remember, it's not the destination that counts, it's the hilariously awkward journey there. Cheers, fellas. So, you're probably wondering what to do if you're a grown man who still loves playing video games and eating cereal for dinner. Well, worry not, my friend, because you're not alone. In fact, we asked our listeners to share their own hilarious boys to men moments, and let me tell you, we got some gems. Take Tim from Ohio, for example. He confessed that he still has his childhood stuffed animal, Mr. Fluffy, sitting on his bed. He swears it helps him sleep better at night. But hey, who are we to judge? And then there's Dave from Texas, who proudly admits that he still can't resist buying the latest action figures and comic books. Hey, it's all about staying young at heart, right? But the best one by far has to be from Jason in California. He openly admitted that he still calls his mom for advice on things like paying bills and fixing stuff around the house. I mean, we can't blame him. Moms just know everything, right? So, if you're feeling like you're not quite ready to fully embrace the responsibilities of adulthood, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. Keep those quirky habits and guilty pleasures close to your heart, because sometimes being a man means holding on to a little bit of that boyish charm. Cheers to that. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Boys to Men. We hope you've enjoyed taking a walk down memory lane with us as we reminisced about all the awkward, hilarious, and downright cringe-worthy moments of transitioning from boys to men. Remember, it's all about embracing the journey and learning from our mishaps, and there were plenty. So, whether you're still figuring out how to tie a tie or you've mastered the art of adulting, keep embracing the journey and don't forget to laugh at yourself along the way. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay manly and never stop reaching for that last slice of pizza in the box. Bye for now, and keep those manly vibes going.